Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. We've got a really, really special guest on the show today. But before I introduce him, remember episode number 28 was all about how to achieve freedom in your business and in your life. So if you're struggling with that and want some expert guidance, look no further than last week's episode number 28. Now for today's special guest, what does it take to manage customer service, social media, internal company promotion, and become the most published and perhaps most influential writer on Quora in the categories of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and crowdfunding? Why is customer service more important now than ever before? And finally, what are the best ways to ensure you too can have world-class customer service? In today's episode, that is our topic. Let's dive right in.
The Funded Today podcast is brought to you by fundedtoday.com. Funded Today is a premier marketing and video agency. From startups to crowdfunding to Amazon and beyond, Funded Today has helped their clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you'd like help launching or growing your business, visit www.fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.
Welcome back to the show. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And just another quick reminder that you can still download our Ultimate Crowdfunding Success Guide. We're calling it the UCSG for short at fundedtoday.com/guide. Now today, our very special guest had this to say about the guide. Our crowdfunding guide unilaterally blows away any other guides that I've ever seen with respect to quality of content. Hopefully you, our faithful podcast listeners, and the marketplace at large will agree. Let me introduce our guest today. Mr. David Garber is the Director of Communications at Funded Today. He not only manages our social media, runs company-specific ads and promotions, but he's also a very avid writer and a politician, in fact. He's often the most popular and most published writer on world-famous website Quora.com on topics like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and crowdfunding. Together with myself and Thomas, David helped to completely master and write the Ultimate Crowdfunding Success Guide. And in the episode today, we'll be covering some of those same topics. To give you a little bit of a teaser what you'll find in the guide, I can safely say that David is not just a jack of all trades, he's nearly a master of all trades too. Whether it's social media management, exceptional customer support, or just plain being curious, learning to master whatever it is he's trying to do, there might not be many people on this entire planet as capable as David. So without further ado, we'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our very own Mr. David Garber. David, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm hanging in there, doing the best I can, and wow, it's quite an introduction. That's a lot to live up to. I'll keep trying to do that. Wow.
Well, we're so glad to have you. I just kind of want to dive right into things because I know our guests are anxious to kind of hear from you and learn about your experience. So maybe, I don't know, David, before we get into the topics though, tell us a little bit more, just in your own words, about what you do at Funded Today, and then we'll kind of get into things that we want to talk about the meat of the episode. Does that work for you?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was hired to help tend to clients so that our expert advertisers and such could have more time to do what they do best. And that's what my job started at, but kind of quickly expanded into helping with operations some and expanding into doing some ads for the company, managing our social media. And then more recently, helping out some with our podcast, doing some writing, Quora, Reddit, like you mentioned, just trying to do what I can, fill in, in anything that I can to add value and just help our company grow. And whatever I can do, I'm just happy to do it. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I think a takeaway that I have with what you said there is, what do you think you could offer to our listeners in terms of, I mean, because you didn't know a lot of these things when you first started. I mean, your background is not internet marketing, online businesses, or any sort of thing like that. And now you definitely stand as an expert in that field. What made you capable of doing what you do now so that our guests can kind of learn how to learn? How did you learn? How did you pursue things? How did you test things out? What made you not scared to dive into things that you had absolutely no clue about even a few years ago? And how did you get so good at them so quickly?
I don't know. I guess I've always been a good learner. I always excelled rather well in school. Growing up, came to BYU with a full scholarship. I had a lot of problems with anxiety and depression, though, and that really hurt my academic performance. Not that I wasn't capable of doing the work, but I just had a lot of trouble with that. So, and that kind of impeded my progress there in school. But I mean, I've always been interested in practically everything to some extent or another.
So the curiosity is kind of leads to some things too.
Every day brings new opportunities, both to learn and to teach others. And I just love to take advantage of them when I can. I spend a lot of time on social media talking. My spare time's more religion, family, politics, my passions. Mm-hmm. But here on the job, I like to learn about whatever I can that I think will maybe help our business, help our clients. and put it to use too.
Now, not to shed too much more light on anxiety and depression, though I think as an entrepreneur, we could probably spend an entire episode on that because it's probably becoming more and more prevalent now more than ever. But do you think, and you may have never been asked this before or considered it, David, but do you think some of the anxiety and depression you've faced and pretty much been able to conquer in your life have helped you have empathy to become better at customer service and customer support and to understand the way others may feel in any way?
Well, I think so. I think when you go through challenges, it can do one of these things for you. Depending on your attitude, you can either get hardened and embittered, or you can be more empathetic. You can learn to have more compassion on others who are going through similar things. And I've tried to have the right attitude about that, and I think I've been pretty successful. I hope I've been successful. As far as I can tell, I have. And yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
It's mostly just a matter of attitude. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that a lot. Well, let's jump into kind of some of the topics that we have prepared today. Topic number one that I want to get into right off the bat. Why is customer service important, David? What makes it stand out so much? I know there's always the common answers and the trite phrases and different things, but on this podcast, obviously, we kind of like to dive a little bit deeper and talk about how this has helped Funded Today to become a world-renowned company, why we've been able to be so successful, and obviously just your own insights and takeaways from dealing with, I mean, what are we at? Nearly 3,000 clients worldwide that we've helped. So,
well, service is important because customers are what the business is all about. Like you talked on that episode about the market is what matters most. Business is all about serving the market in general or the customer specifically. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. You can have great products and great personnel and everything else can be wonderful. But if no one wants them, then what do? You got to find something else to do for a living.
The market matters most, but if there's no customers, there's no market.
Right. There was the business is all about. It's important to stay customer centric, focus on treat them well. There's certainly practical benefits from doing so.
That makes sense, David. So the most important way to serve customers then is to what? I mean, what if you had to narrow it down to just a couple different things? How do you serve them in the best possible way so that they have a good experience and probably for most business owners, hire you again? We have a lot of clients who have hired us many times, which is usually a good sign. It means that you did good enough the first time around that they want to hire you again the second time around. And customer lifetime value, we preach all the time on this podcast and in our own business maxims as probably the most important thing that determines a business from a fly-by-night shop.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is what you're giving them, what you're offering, and the value, the benefits for the cost that you're asking in return. If you're not giving something good like that, they're not going to really care about the rest. But when you do give them a good offer, it helps additionally to treat them well in the process of doing it. Be empathetic, be communicative, help set expectations well. Just try to give them a good experience from start to finish. And that'll help encourage their loyalty. It'll help them give good word of mouth to your company and so forth.
Now, David, let me ask you, you said two things that really stood out to me, which I agree with substantially. One of those were expectations, and the other was to be communicative. Could you expound on both of those and why those are important and what you've seen interacting with thousands of clients, why those two elements are critical?
Well, we deal with a lot of clients. We have people constantly coming and going. We work with crowdfunding clients mostly. So at this time, people are coming in with 30 to 45 day campaigns or whatnot. And so there's a lot of turnover, and we need to work pretty fast. We need to hit the ground running, get things going quickly. And that kind of makes it very important to just get things kind of going right from the start. And part of that is setting expectations. People need to know what to expect. Okay, I'm here, I've signed up, I got your service. Now what? What's going to happen next? What are you going to do? What do I expect? Am I going to get daily updates? Am I going to, how's this going to work? And so I found it very helpful to try to get those questions answered as quickly as possible up front. We ended up developing some documents and templates rather quickly after I came on board, which very gradually took shape, interacting with one client after another that kind of helped to inform clients about all these questions they were having, so that they could know, okay, this is what's going to happen from this point onward. And that really helped clarify things so they know what to expect.
There's something good to be said about that too, David. You looked at what one customer was saying, and then you saw what another customer or client was saying. And after you saw two or three, you said, I'm saying the same thing so many times. Let's templatize it. Let's systematize it. And over time, those templates and systems have turned into some pretty remarkable answers to questions that are quite literally a doctoral thesis on crowdfunding, so to speak, right? I mean, if you want to get to that point. So it's been pretty impressive. And I know our customers time and time again say, wow, this is a lot of information, but I am so grateful for this. I can't believe all this has been put together in such a beautiful fashion.
So many times.
Yeah. Cool.
Some people find it a bit too much. They want something shorter, so we try to include bullet points and things like that to accommodate them. And I'm sure some people skim it and only look at the parts they're interested in, which is fine, But in general, I found it seems to be more helpful to be thorough. And I noticed usually whenever I put something in that document, because it kept coming up over and over and over in calls, after I put it in there, it hardly ever came up again. Once in a while it did.
And most importantly, I loved what you said. It's more important to be thorough than not. You can always refer back to something when they do have a question. I actually told this to you earlier, Mr. and Mrs. Client. You can see it here. And then you refer to the document again, and then they go through the document at that point in time. And it's usually not too late at that point in time to review again anyway. So I tend to agree with you, even though there is a balance to be said of read this 20-page thing versus read these 4 or 5 bullet points. And I think we've done a pretty good job of marrying the two. Here's a short little video explaining things. And if you want to learn more, here is an essay on the matter. Here is a document on the matter. Here's some more stuff you can read, and kind of creating a little bit of a balance between a short summary and if you really want to become an expert on crowdfunding, here's what you really should know. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's what we tried to do. As for how we succeeded, well, I think we can always do better. That just comes in time. So constantly trying to improve.
So let's talk about that. In order to do better, the Harvard Business Review talks about this quite a bit, and it's quite frankly just common sense, but people are more inclined to transact with likable, trustworthy business people. So don't only give customers a good product and price, but also give them a good experience with your team. How do you create likability and trustworthiness, particularly when you are an online business, and nowadays almost every business is transitioning more and more to a remote, never see people face to face. I mean, that used to be pretty scary. There's no office, there's no workspace. You may never actually shake the person's hand you're doing business with. In today's modern day remote business, how do you create likability and trustworthiness through customer support?
So that's a really good question. Most of our communication is nonverbal, so it definitely helps to see someone face to face, talk with them. When you're talking over the computer, you sometimes lose things. It's sometimes easier to make errors in trying to understand what people are trying to communicate, their motives, and so forth. And in fact, we were just talking a little bit earlier today about some kind of bias. What was the name of that?
Yeah, Thomas, share that for a sec.
The hostile attribution bias, which is when somebody says something or does something and their actions or their words or their behavior is either ambiguous or benign even, they have no malintent. That hostile attribution bias is that we as humans have a bias to attribute their actions or their words as hostile or hostile. I don't know how you pronounce it or if it matters, but that becomes really difficult, right? That hostile attribution bias. It's hard enough person to person sometimes where you have emotional cues and body language, but when it's all digital, that's a new scenario.
Yeah, no, I love that. I have a new puppy dog, a toy golden doodle, and her name is Arwen. We call her Ari for short. And I see that all the time. When you think of evolution or Darwinism or whatnot, you hear the phrase fight or flight sometimes. And I look at my dog sometimes and I'm nothing but gentle and nice to her, but still she'll kind of get all scared or worry that I'm going to come at her or something, or maybe she's just playing. But if that can happen with an animal that I just absolutely love, and it can absolutely happen on the internet and your communications with everything, the hostile attribution bias, where we just immediately assume the worst when literally that was the complete opposite of what was intended. And at Funded Today, we have a core value that we preach all the time. We call it assume the positive. And every single chance you get, try to assume the positive. And I think that's the perfect antidote to this hostile attribution bias. When you notice that happening, when you sense the negativity, immediately assume the positive and get rid of that fight or flight that's inside your mind simply because of evolution or whatever you want to call it, and realize that it's just there to protect you, but the protection is actually counterintuitive in this spot. And by assuming the positive, I think you can balance out that negative emotion that you feel with the reality of what's actually happening. And by doing that, you can align with your customers. You can understand that when a customer asks a question and it comes across negative, it's actually not negative. It's just the customer asking a question because they want to learn more. They want more transparency. And we could probably share hundreds of examples like this, right, David?
And it definitely helps their company. It helps in dealing with clients. Getting the clients to understand that principle isn't, it might help too. But yeah, I mean, definitely being patient with them, understanding, not just automatically assuming the worst, but and just trying to work things out with them, not escalating the situation and just saying, okay, how can we help you fix this? What can we do to work with you to resolve whatever concerns or problems or issues you have? You can be happy, we don't say in those words, of course, naturally, but yeah, I mean, that's the intent. And certainly getting on regular calls and such helps too, because then you're not just seeing text on the screen, you're actually hearing a voice. And, even seeing a video call maybe could potentially help more, because you're seeing someone's face.
Yeah, such a powerful takeaway. We've been trying to implement that more and more. It's so easy to text a message over or send something to somebody. And quite frankly, it's actually so easy just to call somebody up on Skype or the phone as well. And yet, for whatever reason, at least in our company, we weren't doing that as much. And now we try to do a lot more phone and Skype calls. And we found that goes a long way to adding an empathetic element to this otherwise text environment where you generally can't get your emotions conveyed as well as you could if you were face-to-face in a conference room with somebody. So I love that, David. I think that's powerful as well. And that definitely creates a little bit more trustworthiness. I just did this on a call myself today just to make sure I don't become so far removed from the company that I helped to create. I chatted with one of our best clients. We've talked about him on the podcast a little bit. Last Swab, last shout out to them. They've just got a few days left on their campaign at the time of this recording, but it was a great chat. We had a chance to go over some things, recap the experience, learn from each other. And I found it to be very helpful. And I was able to get a little bit of feedback. And then I brought that feedback to our team. And that's, I think, how we continue to improve. So I love that. Is there anything else you want to share on this bit, David, before we jump on to our next topic?
Just more about the why, why you need customer service, especially in crowdfunding. You usually come in with a unilaterally superior product. This is better than anything else on the market right now. This is amazing, but it's really hard to maintain that edge. Sooner or later, you're going to get competitors. It's almost, it's only natural in a free market. Someone else is going to say that, hey, I can do that too, or I can even do that better. And so it's just kind of a constant struggle. In fact, we were talking about that some recently too, about the need to reinvest the money that you're getting from your current cash cow into experimenting and trying to figure out how to create new ones, because the current one isn't going to last forever, especially in this rapidly evolving tech world.
Right. Literally, before we recorded this podcast episode, we were talking about a product that comes to market in a little bit. We'll probably talk about it as the product of the week on this episode, but they have invented a superior toothbrush to the other toothbrushes that we've even talked about on this podcast before. So absolutely right, David. Continue that train of thought.
Yeah. So anytime your competitors catch up with you as far as the benefits and costs and everything else that they're offering, and they're giving something very comparable to what you're doing, well, customers are going to start turning to other things to help them decide which one do I buy from. And one of those factors that's very important is customer service, how well you treat them. If two people are offering the same thing and one is really likable and trustworthy and you have a really good relationship that you're enjoying with that person, then you're going to buy from them. And, that helps encourage customer loyalty. It's a lot cheaper to maintain existing customers than to go out and try new ones. I think I mentioned it briefly earlier, they'll give you good word of mouth, which is really the most powerful form of marketing.
That's how Fun Today started. We worked with the Ruse Port, and the Ruse Port told a few other people, and they told a few other people, and suddenly there were hundreds of people who wanted to work with us, and we didn't even have a business. So,
right. Now, all this other stuff can help, running ads can help and all this stuff. And we do that all the time. And it's great. A lot of times when people are deciding what business to go with, they'll see an ad, they'll go and check out your website or something. But then most people will next go check the reviews on you. Say, okay, I've seen what these guys say about themselves. What is everyone else saying about them? And those reviews can be really powerful. They can make or break businesses sometimes, especially here in the information age when information is so readily available. You speak something on the internet and you can reach a much larger crowd than if you just spread it among your family and friends. So it's really important to maintain good word of mouth about yourself. Otherwise, you're undermining every other thing you're doing with your marketing.
So what have you done in terms of maintaining those good reviews? What have you done, and what would you recommend to listeners of, we call them Funded Today Nation, but what would you recommend to Funded Today Nation in terms of ensuring that good word of mouth, people are talking good about you behind their backs?
Well, just give them good service. They'll just naturally go out and promote you.
What about in terms of what you do at Funded Today to encourage positive word of mouth and to solicit testimonials and different things from clients who've had successful experiences, things like that, David? I mean, what does that look like? And how can a business owner apply some of these principles to their own business?
Keep customers happy with some of the things that we talked about. Good setting expectations, good communication, making sure they know what's going on. If they have complaints, being proactive about that, trying to figure out what it is that they're concerned about and see what you can do to help resolve that. Sometimes the complaints are simply because of misunderstanding or misinterpretation, not being able to see everything that's going on. Like you said before, perspective is a private experience. Reality is objective, but we don't always see reality quite the same way because we have various biases. We don't see everything. We don't know everything. And so we sometimes misinterpret things, and it's important to kind of correct those through communication.
Powerful. I love that. Now, you tell an example of Walmart, and I'll let you tell the story, but I think it transitions perfectly into our next topic. So maybe just lead into that, David, the Sam Walton's philosophy, and maybe more specifically how Costco kind of handles things nowadays.
As you develop your reputation, as you have, customer after customer, and they have good experiences with you, they spread good word of mouth, and your reputation gradually takes shape over time. If you have a really good reputation, people naturally tend to rally around your company and support it. Costco, for example, they're one of America's most beloved companies. They treat their employees wonderfully. They have a very generous return policy. People know that Costco cares about them and is really interested in treating them well. And so they respond in kind. They're very supportive of Costco. They're loyal customers. They give good word of mouth. And Costco just keeps growing. I mean, that stock keeps going up and up and up. Some people sometimes complain that Costco puts the interests of their employees and customers ahead of their shareholders. But it doesn't seem to me their shareholders are suffering at all from that. And Walmart used to be the same way. I mean, Sam Walton had this great guiding philosophy for his company that if you take care of people, then they'll take care of you. And that worked really well for him. Walmart just grew and grew and grew and did amazingly well. And unfortunately, after he died, his guiding philosophy did not get passed along with him. Walmart faltered quite a bit since then, just because of various scandals and things. They stopped with the, take care of people and take care of you, and it just became about low prices, and that was it. And in the name of achieving low prices, they didn't take good care of their employees sometimes, or their customers or others.
Even more recently, could you probably lump Amazon into the take care of your people, or at least on the customer side of things?
And that's what I was going to say, Zach, as well. Amazon, right? The company with the largest market cap in the world that has created this massive enterprise, and they put customer service above everything. It's insane.
It's almost crazy.
Yeah. And you can really see that shine through.
So, David, how to achieve good customer service then, generally speaking?
The best way to create a reputation, it has to start with your character. Like you talked about in Stoicism, you need to focus on...
I love how you were referencing all of our past episodes.
Oh, thanks. I've been really enjoying the stuff you've been talking about in general. And, I'm happy to, make sure it gets brought up as well myself. So, but anyway, the only thing you can control fully is the substance, not the image. You can only, focus on the sort of person you are, the sort of character you have. And then, the reputation, well, that has to do with other people. You can't really control that. You just have to leave that up to them, do what's right, let the consequence follow. Some people try to focus on, reputation management, maybe more than trying to fix fundamental flaws with their character. And that can help somewhat. The best way and the easiest way to present yourself well to the public is just to be good, and then it's so much easier. Everything else follows so naturally from that. Promoting yourself is good, but you need to make sure that the image you're promoting is consistent with the substance. And if it's not, you need to work on the substance. For some reason, I was just thinking about this anecdote with Benjamin Franklin, his autobiography, when he came to Philadelphia and he was working, and he was a very industrious fellow. And he not only was industrious, but he thought it'd be good to let people know about it. So he made sure that this wheel on his wheelbarrow deliberately squeaked. So when he was going around town, people would notice him and see, well, that guy's a pretty industrious fellow. And so it wasn't false representation. He was just simply making sure people noticed what was already there, rather than trying to, delude them into believing something that wasn't so. So with that first things first principle in mind, I would say that service starts with the heart. And at the risk of getting kind of touchy-feely, I would say that we need to focus on our hearts first and foremost. We each have or can develop the capacity to both squelch bad desires and actively nurture good ones. And what we need to do is just nurture genuine concern for the welfare of others. As we do that, the actions kind of naturally flow from the feelings.
Whole idea of the golden rule, I guess, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I believe in the principle of loving our neighbors as ourselves. And as part of that, there's the golden rule, which is actually, I was looking at Wikipedia a while back, and I learned that the golden rule is actually found in pretty much every major world religion in some form or another. It's a very common principle that so many people on earth understand. Stephen Covey talks about it as well, as in the form of think win-win. You need to seek mutually beneficial business relationships. You don't want to be parasitical or predatory. You need to try to, think, how can we both benefit from this, this relationship, not just what's in it for me,
I always take it even one further, David. I think triple win, 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 win. How can I win? How can the client win? And how can the customer win? If it's a business to business type service where there's also a customer that we may or may not be interacting or interfacing with directly. So yeah, I love that. That's great.
Amen. Agreed.
So let's bring it back home. And I like this point that you make quite a bit. After you've changed yourself, then you can change the world. The idea that you have to start inwardly before you progress outwardly. What is meant by that? And how does that specifically relate to customer service without getting a little bit too philosophical?
Yeah, I think that's a good, correct principle too. If we want to change the world, we need to start with ourselves and work outward to, our families, our community, state, city, nation, etc. We got to start with ourselves and work outward. And I think if we want good customer service, then we not only have to develop those qualities in ourselves, but once we've done so, after we've done so, then we can start focusing on others, through our work outward through our organizational structure, make it part of our company culture. Make sure that if we have a vision statement or mission statement, make sure, think about including that in there. We need to instill that in employees too. And ultimately, customer service should be everyone's business. Your entire business should be focused on serving customers. So even if you have like a dedicated person who does nothing but customer service, everyone should really be focused on it. At least that's what I've learned from other people. And I believe it's true. I
love kind of what we talked about earlier, David, and I think you believe this too. When you treat your people well, when you treat your team members, your employees, your contractors, it helps them treat your clients and your customers well as well, right? I mean, it kind of starts from the top and works its way down.
Yeah, when people love your company, when they're happy to show up for work each day, when it's a thrill for them, they're just full of happiness. It makes it easier for them to treat customers well.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think probably a very strong takeaway that most people don't consider. You think you hire a customer support person. Oh, we got a customer support person. They handle all that. No, that's completely wrong. That's a fallacy. When you hire a specialist to handle your customer support, great. But everybody's job should be customer support. Everybody's job should be to try to create good customer service, because when you do that, then you stay true to your mission. You stay true to your purpose. And when you're doing that, like you said, it creates happiness. And when you have happiness at work, it really is a great thing.
Well, and at the end of the day, every department from product to marketing to sales, if the focus is on pleasing the customer, it's the same end game, right? Mm-hmm. And so if that's your end game to please the customer, then that's going to trickle down into the customer support. And if it's not, then you're not going to have good customer support. If it's just to make a quick buck, then the customers are going to feel that.
Yeah, I love that. Now, David, when we talk about customer support, kind of playing off this theme here, a lot of times we think of it customer support, and you kind of put it aside and you say, that's customer support's job. That's that job. But in reality, I love this concept that you have. You classify customer service as an operations job rather than a sales job. Explain that a little bit and talk about kind of how a customer service oriented professional needs to be holistically minded in terms of every single hat they have to wear.
From what I've read, it seems like that's a common view that customer support should be an operations job, not a sales job. I mean, you certainly benefit from sales. It affects your sales because it improves customer loyalty and, helps good word of mouth and so forth. But certainly when you're dealing with customers, if you want to upsell them on additional services or things as part of their service experience, then that can help. But really, it's just about making sure that the customer is happy and making sure that working with your different departments and divisions to make sure things are getting where they need to go. When they ordered something, it's actually getting to them. And if it isn't, well, where the heck is it? What happened to it? And how can we get this problem resolved? So you're just trying to make sure that operations are working together toward serving that customer. That customer is getting what they need. They're happy. And it's just kind of at the heart of operations, of service.
I think a lot of times we think customer service is just its own thing, but in reality, and I said this in your introduction, jack of all trades, master of all trades for you, but really a customer service professional is going to be most qualified if he or she understands a little bit or a lot of all of the different components of your business, instead of just how to manage customers and how to deal with customers. And I think that's where you excel, probably greater than any other person I've met in my life, truth be told, when it comes to that, because you understand every single component intimately with what we do here at Funded Today. Now, you do a lot of surveys at Funded Today, and you and I monthly, quarterly kind of review different things, and you bring other things to my attention as they come about. Talk about that a little bit. Talk about why those are important, your strategy behind the surveys that you do, and how those help to improve customer service and keep a good pulse on how your clients are feeling.
Others have said, and I believe it's true, that performance tends to improve when it's measured and improve even more when it's reported. And so it's good to continually measure the most important factors in your company's success, which includes your service. One common way that people do that is through customer satisfaction surveys. That's something that we do in our company. When we're done working with our clients, we give them a survey and ask them about their experience. And that just kind of helps us to keep track on the pulse of how well our service is going from month to month, and to identify any problems that are coming up. If something is coming up repeatedly over and over again, it's probably something that needs to be taken care of.
And think of how many good things we've had come of that, David. I mean, I can think of probably 10 to 12 things just in the last year that you and I have talked about, and then we've implemented because of what we learned from what our clients and customers were saying, right? Let's talk about performance as it relates to customer service. We've talked about how when we measure it and then we report on that, it improves. But talk about customer service performance as it relates to effective communications. The idea of setting the correct expectations, properly explaining products and services.
Communication is a big part of that. Communication is very important in any relationship, including a business relationship. You ideally want to get involved in a good relationship with your clients, maintain that relationship, and that can only be done with communication. Communication both requires trust and helps encourage trust, or at least it can do so if you do it right. Part of communication is, again, like we talked about earlier, setting good expectations, explaining how to use your product services. So when you finally ship that thing you crowdfunded, you probably want to include some instructions in there so people know how to use it right. Announcing any kind of developments with your company so they know what's going on. Resolving concerns both promptly and empathetically.
Let's talk about that one for a sec, David. How do you resolve concerns empathetically? Because I liked how you added in that word. What's the best way to create empathy, to have empathy for somebody when there is a concern that comes up? Because invariably there will be concerns as you start a business, or as you run a crowdfunding campaign, or as you try to communicate with your backers or your clients.
Yeah, well, it's mainly trying to put yourself in the customer's position. Let them speak, let them explain what's going on in their own words, and then, try to put yourself in their position. What if I were in that position? What if I were perceiving the things the way that they are, which may or not may be accurate? And how can I respond in a way that's, honest, that's accurate, that's sufficiently forthright with them, and yet, is also in harmony with how they would want to be treated, how I would want someone to treat me if I were in that situation. So,
yeah. Listen more, talk less. 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason, that old adage. Yeah, a lot of these things are trite phrases, but I mean, they really do matter, and it's easy to forget them, even now more than ever, because of, like I said, digital communication. There's a lot less empathy in the world now. I mean, think of the way people comment on Facebook posts or on Reddit or YouTube, and the way people go about and engage online is a lot different than they would if they were sitting with you across the table at a dinner. So I think it's important to take these things into consideration. And you see this all the time, David, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's partly the age in which we live. We just seem to live in a particularly, at least in my opinion, a rather arrogant and combative kind of society now compared to what it was 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with generational cycles, which is a very different topic that might be interesting to discuss on another occasion, but not on this podcast.
That's what I find fascinating about you. You're always studying new things, and just hearing that word makes me want to go Google it. But David, just staying on topic with you, I want to do a little rapid fire to kind of wrap up the episode. How to achieve good service, specifically as it relates to crowdfunding. Rapidly go through 5 bullet points of what you'd recommend to anybody doing a crowdfunding campaign. How can they do it? What are 5 quick takeaways? Boom, 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 boom kind of thing.
I think it's important to thank each backer personally when they pledge and even engage them in conversation. It's good to express gratitude. I think that's good at helping to start an initial relationship with a customer. Some people might want to use this opportunity to invite them to join some kind of affiliate marketing program, which can help with their pledges. It's also a good opportunity to set expectations for what's going to happen in the near future. There's one other benefit too, and that's if the backer ends up canceling the pledge, if you've already initiated contact with them before they do so on Kickstarter, then you'll be able to continue to do so after they cancel, and you can try to find out, very, very politely, kindly, hey, what happened? Why did you cancel? Is there anything I can do to improve? So it can be great for getting feedback. And backers in general are very good for giving feedback. And it's good to take maximum advantage of the opportunity when you're crowdfunding to get as much feedback as you can about your product, your service, and other aspects of your business too.
All right. So number 1, welcome. Thank every backer individually as they come on. Number 2.
Number 2, updates. It's good to communicate regularly with your backers through updates. Backers will sometimes give you feedback if you're updating them too often or not enough. It's good to kind of pay attention to that feedback and just try to figure out how you can serve them best. Usually twice a week seems to work pretty well. As for good things to include in your updates, a lot of creators like to include answers to questions, notices about new features and new rewards, alerts about changes in their media or notable publicity that you've obtained, celebrations of campaign milestones that you've reached or deadlines that are looming, or just to thank them for pledging, or maybe even encourage them to find others to pledge. So
for that episode, for cross promotions and finding others to pledge, we've got a great episode where Colton came on and talked about cross promotions. So listen to that episode.
Hey man, that was
if you want to learn more about ideas there. All right, David, number 3, comments.
Yeah, and you have a section in your campaign for comments, and it's really good to respond promptly to any feedback you see in there. It shows backers that you value what they want, that you value what they say. It also gives them reassurance that you're not a scammer. Some backers, I understand, have a habit of going through a campaign and looking at, are these creators responding to their comments? Are they providing regular updates? What are they doing? And if they're not, then that kind of makes them a little bit leery of your campaign, about pledging. So,
and not only that, David, it's important that you respond empathetically and kindly and with enough detail and transparency, because if you just comment and it doesn't seem to match the way backers want to receive a comment, then they're going to be even more worried than had you remained silent. So it's important to be thorough in the way that you update and communicate with your backers within the comment section, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. And templates might be helpful in this case too. If you, like we talked about earlier, if you find yourself saying the same thing over and over and over to different backers in a one-on-one chat, well, maybe you want to make that into a template. You shouldn't use your templates rigidly. You shouldn't just say, oh, I've got this template now, I'm going to use the same one for everyone. You need to be flexible, be able to customize it, for each person, because even if it fits 90% of the people, there's always going to be maybe 10% that's just not quite going to work for. So
yeah, I like that. All right, number 4, surveys.
Yeah. So surveys, along with passively waiting for unsolicited feedback from backers, you can also seek it out through at least one survey to your backers. This isn't the same as the official survey at the end where you get information, okay, what colors and styles and so forth does everyone want? This is more something that you would want to just kind of send out to each backer as like maybe a Google form or something. Mm-hmm. It might be kind of hard. If you got a lot of backers, it might be hard to do without some automated software like the kind we have. But especially if you have a smaller campaign, it should be a lot easier to just do it when, send an individual message to each backer.
A couple cool takeaways with surveys too are the idea that you can use surveys, capture certain information about your backers, like an email address, and then use that to create lookalike audiences so that you can find more of your backers through Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, that sort of advertising. So that's another powerful way that you can use surveys in your customer support, but also benefit your marketing arm side of things too.
Definitely. Indiegogo lets you collect those emailing addresses as you go, fortunately, but Kickstarter, you'll need to ask for them because normally you don't get them until after your campaign ends successfully, if it does. So that's one good thing. Another thing people sometimes like to ask in surveys is about stretch goals. Some people plan out their stretch goals in advance. Other people just like to leave it up to their backers. Okay, what ideas do you guys have? What would you like to see in this product? Which is kind of related to, customer service too, just trying to figure out what they want and fulfill those wants.
And finally, farewells, number 5, David.
Yeah, and we talked about that briefly a moment ago. Just sometimes backers cancel. So if they do, just try to find out why. Even if they don't end up, repledging, it at least gives you some good feedback to perhaps minimize others from canceling, or just in general see what you can do better. So, yeah.
I love that one. We've applied it hundreds of times, but you ask a backer, why did you leave? Why did you cancel? And a lot of times they'll say, well, the price was too expensive. And then you say, well, we've got this cashback network called Funded Today where you get 10% cash back. If you could get 10% cash back, would that make it better? Yeah, that'd be great. Wonderful. Okay, great. Here's a link. Go buy. And you can get them back just as simple as that, right? So there's lots of cool little marketing strategies you can do while you are applying customer support to get canceled backers or people who had questions or concerns back excited and engaged on your campaign, and maybe even hook them up with a discount through things like the Funded Today cashback network. So I like that idea as well. Anything else to add on those, David, for achieving good customer service as it relates to crowdfunding?
Well, I think that pretty much covers it. Just to reiterate, the market matters most. Business is all about keeping focused on, serving the market and your customer in general and your customers specifically. If you don't do that, you don't have a business. So,
love it. Now, David, one last plug for the Ultimate Crowdfunding Success Guide, because your hand is all over that. Tell us about it. Get Funded Today Nation excited about this.
Yeah, I've been working very hard on that for the first quarter of this year or so. It's basically complete. It just needs to be prettified up a little bit and prepared to send out. Just try to distill every bit of crowdfunding wisdom that I could from our company, from our podcast, from our blog episodes, from our personnel, from everything that I've learned working with all the clients that I've worked with over the last few years, and just distill it together into one just power-packed thing about just everything we know that could potentially help someone with a campaign. And so it's very comprehensive. Tried to make it as exhaustive as possible without, being overwhelming. Hopefully it's not overwhelming. But I think anyone who's planning a crowdfunding campaign, even someone who's already run one once successfully, I could potentially benefit a lot from this advice we have in here. We worked with over 2,500 clients so far. We've learned a lot of things on the way, and we think that these things can benefit others who are just starting out or like I said, more experience. So
awesome. Thank you. And David is very modest. He's probably the most honest, humble person you're ever going to run across. So this is an amazing guide. I think you're going to want to check it out. And without even trying to overhype it or oversell it, this is probably the best thing ever written when it comes specifically related to rewards-based crowdfunding. And David might not say that because he's very political. He's very smart. I'll say it for him. And this is a wonderful guide. And I think it can help thousands of creators have better crowdfunding campaigns. David, thanks again for being on our show today. Thanks for letting us have you on.
You're welcome.
It was wonderful and very insightful. We'll have to do it again sometime and talk about the myriad of other topics that you are an expert on. But thanks again. I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
All right, Funded Today Nation. It's, again, my most favorite time of the podcast episode. This is the Funded Today Products of the Week, and I've got a really cool one for you today myself. This is a product by Dr. Pick called Vumbler, and it's going to be hard to describe this thing, so you're going to want to check it out. It hasn't even launched yet. It's launching soon on Kickstarter. This is the world's first all-in-one vacuum oral care device. If you remember me talking about Unibrush on the podcast, it's a toothbrush, but it's a little different. This is a toothbrush that can clean, whiten, and massage your gums and your teeth all at once. And the way it does it is through a vacuum seal. The vacuum seal makes it so that there is a repetition and contraction and expansion for the specially designed brushes that don't just get rid of the tartar, but they also enhance blood circulation in your gum tissue. Now, if that's a mouthful, basically this toothbrush does all of the things better than the other toothbrushes that have ever launched on Kickstarter do. That's their promise. And it's exciting. This was invented by Dr. Hune. He's the founder of Dr. Pick. And he was upset whenever he encountered difficulties with people suffering from gum and dental disorders. And he found that this vacuum control technology of sucking all of it out was the best possible way to not only clean your teeth, whiten your teeth, massage your gums, improve everything, but to also make you have the healthiest teeth imaginable in the quickest amount of time. So Vumbler, it's exciting. I think it's going to do really well. VUMBLR, we'll link to it in the show notes as well. So take a look at it. Let us know your thoughts. Thomas, what do you got for us?
My product of the week is a watch. And there's been a lot of watches on Kickstarter, but if you like watches, I do. I have a Rolex, I have a Gucci, I have a couple other watches. I usually go with my Rolex, though. After you have a Rolex, what are you supposed to do, right? I feel kind of bad for my Gucci watch. It always just sits there, but whatever. So, although
David and me always could take another watch,
Sure.
Thomas.
Although, if you look at the watch aficionados, a brand like Gucci, they don't really care much for, because it doesn't necessarily have the internal components, right, that make a watch beautiful, right? And so the watch that is the product of the week this week is called Austin Sydney, right? Already has a very elegant, sophisticated name, Austin Sydney. And the design is actually based off Sydney, Australia, and some of the design and architecture that you get from Sydney, Australia. You'll have to check it out to see the design. It's a very beautiful watch. They actually use full grain leather. And so it has Swiss-made movement, which all top watches are going to have. And the leather is from Italy, where the best Italian or the best leather products will come from Italy. So check it out if you like watches. Again, it's a beautiful, beautiful watch, and it's called Austin Sydney.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Now, David, as we like to do with every guest that comes on the show, you get a chance to talk about a product that you're kind of enamored with as well. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, well, I thought I'd talk about Sax Monica. Nick Millington came up to us with this the Sax Monica project last year. He's now back with us for a 2.0. It's pretty fun. I enjoy music, and this new instrument he's created seems pretty neat to me. It has a sound that's a lot like a saxophone, but yet it's very durable. It doesn't get dinged up. You don't need to polish it. You don't need to clean out the spit from whatever. It's pocket size. You can take it with you wherever you go. It's very simply put together. Just a really cool little thing. He's adding like a few different tubes to it, so you can have different scales that you can play, and also doing like some custom paint on it. I just think it's really, really neat.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing, David. And there you have it. The Funded Today Products of the Week. This episode was jam-packed with wisdom, action items, all kinds of little gems and takeaways and quotes. I love the Benjamin Franklin story and the squeaky wheelbarrow. So you can apply these all to your own business right away. And if you do, I can guarantee you're going to start enjoying world-class customer service. And most importantly, you're going to reap the benefits that come from serving your customers in the best possible ways. So re-listen to this episode, share it with some friends and family, give us a review on iTunes or other platforms that you listen on. We love it. It helps us. It keeps us engaged and excited. I personally read every one of them, and it kind of motivates me. And if you have topics or ideas, we like to hear them as well, because then we know what you want to hear more about. Next time, we're going to actually feature one of those ideas. We've been hearing about it quite a bit. We're going to talk about Shark Tank, the TV show, life after crowdfunding, and so much more with another very special guest, one of our successful past Kickstarter creators herself, Tammy Rant. That's all I'm giving you for now, but I promise you're not going to want to miss this one. And until next time, remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.